You're going mute. All right. Um, so we are studying the book of Shmuel Aleph, chapter 30th, verse 25. We have a bit of an interesting topic this week, and that is the legitimacy of spoils of war. You know, who's according to Jewish law, obviously. What does the Jewish law has to say about the spoils of war? But before that, we're going to go through the last six verses of the chapter. This is the chapter one before the last of the book of Shmuel Aleph. The book of Shmuel Aleph is ending with the death of Shaul, King Saul. We have two events going on concurrently right now. There is a war in the north, a war that the Jews led by King Saul is running against the Philistines. The Philistines started again. They felt that since David ran away from the land of Israel, he was the guy that defeated Goliath at the time, so he was the big reason why they kept losing. He's now on their side, so they felt. So they started a war. We are going to deal with the terrible, devastating outcome of that war in the next chapter, in chapter 31. But for now, we are dealing with another war that's happening in the south of Israel. That war is led by David, who is not a king yet, but is soon to be. He ran away from the land of Israel because King Saul was after him, was basically trying to arrest him, kill him, get rid of him, whatever, for various legitimacies in his mind, which were obviously illegitimate, not legitimate reasons, but David had it and ran away, and he was in the south of Israel. He attempted to join the war in the north, but was sent back home because the Philistines did not trust him. They said, "You're not going to be with us. You're going to help your brethren during the war. So we don't want to fight with you. We don't want you to fight with us, rather." So they sent him back. He got back home, and home was burned down. The whole place, the whole city of Ziklag, where he was stationed, was burned down to the ground, and all of the people, including men, the women and children that were left there, including two of David's wives, were taken as prisoners of war by the Amalekites. David didn't give in; he gave chase, found them, got rid of them, and rescued all of the people that were taken prisoners, as well as all of the spoils. And this is where we're joining in, as you see on the screen. Vayhi bayom ha'u me'ayom ha'u va'ah. So he basically took the spoils of war, and we said in the verses before, last time, we said that he took all of the spoils and he made it as a rule, as a law, that the soldiers, as well as the people that remained behind to guard the camp or whatever they were guarding, not in the front lines, those people also will take part in the spoils. So it would be divided between the soldiers and the people in the back. And the reason for it is because they obviously also contributed, and they were also, they also had a part to play, as we saw before when they left the town without leaving guards. The town was burned down. So people who left behind they have reason, they have purpose. So they also got part in the spoils. And the king himself, the leader himself, David, who again wasn't a king yet, but he was the leader of that group, he took half of the spoils. So half went to David and half went to all of the soldiers, those who fought and those who did not. And that's where we're joining in Shmuel, first book of Shmuel, chapter 30, verse 25. That from that day on, it was a rule of law in the law book of the Jewish people, and that rule is in effect until present day. Now, what did he do with the spoils that he received? So, David came back to the city, that burned down city. So here is making a move of a king. Okay, he's not interested in his own personal profit and personal wealth, and he didn't go to war in order to enrich himself. He went in order to punish some of those who were terrorizing the Jewish cities in Israel, and then they retaliated by taking the women and the children as prisoners, and then he took it back. So all of the spoils and those people who the Amalekites who took the women and children as prisoners of war did not really only attack his town, they attacked many other towns, and they took tremendous amount of spoils. And so he took those spoils and he sent them, some of it, he split it amongst other people that were totally not part of his group. He sent it back home to the elders of Judah and told them, here is the blessing that you got from the Lord, the enemies of the Lord. He's basically trying the whole mood in Israel at the time was that David is after his own benefit. He came in from nowhere, the word was that he fooled the king into marrying his daughter, and he is only after his own wealth, which was totally incorrect information, fake news as they call it today, but people ate it up. So he wanted to prove to people, first of all, some of the spoils came from Judah, because those Amalekites, as we said, were going on a frenzy of battles, and they were very strong and very fierce, and they were successful. So they took a lot of money from a lot of people. So he sent it back to the elders of Judah, and that is starting to preparing the environment for him to return back to Israel. Those elders of Judah ended up being the ones who would anoint him, inaugurate him, accept him as a king after the death of Saul, which will happen in the next chapter. Now, in the next few verses, he's basically listing all of the cities that he sent the spoils to, that he split the spoils with. He sent the spoils לאשר בבית-אל, לאשר ברמות נגב, לאשר ביתר, 3 cities. Bet-El is very near Jerusalem. It's not so much in the south of Israel. It's really in the center of Israel. Ramot Negev is also, it's a little more south there. Yater, ולאשר בערוער, ולאשר בספמות, ולאשר באשתמוע, and other cities. And soon we'll see why those cities are not others. ולאשר ברחל, ולאשר בערי רחמלאי, ולאשר בערי הקיני. He also sent to those the modern day Bedouins, Druze. I'm sorry, the modern day Druze, believed to be from Jethro, right? The descendants of Jethro, Moshe's father-in-law. So those are the Kinis, the Kenites. So he also shared with them. ולאשר בחורמה, ולאשר בבור עשן, ולאשר בענך. Another 3 cities. ולאשר בחברון, this is the city of Hebron. This is the place that David would be, will be his capital city for the first 7 years of his ruling. ולכל המקומות אשר יתהלך שם דוד ובאנשיו. And here is the last word is telling us why he was splitting the spoils of war with all these people. Because these were the places that David and his men had roamed previously. When he was running away from King Saul, he was going from place to place, and he was ending up visiting many cities mainly in the south of Israel, and those people were good to him. And since those people were good to him, he was fair with them and good to them back. And when he took the spoils of war from this amazing war that he just won, he split it with them as well, even though they had absolutely nothing to do with the win, they had nothing to do with the with getting it back. Okay, so that is the end of this chapter. The next chapter is a short one, but long in content. We're going to talk about the war in the north. That was a polar opposite of the war in the south. The war in the south was successful. The war in the north was disastrous, and they lost the king. King Saul and all of his sons died. So that's a spoiler alert, but I just told it. So we'll see it next week. What we're going to talk about in the next half an hour or so is the spoils of war in Jewish law. Now, Jewish law is dealing extensively with how property is changing hands. Like every other law on earth, in the land, right? So typically people can acquire things by buying them or by earning them, which is another form of buying. You exchange your sweat with your effort for the thing that you want to buy, the thing that you want to get, money or otherwise. You can find something which is in the public domain. You walked in the middle of the street and you saw a $100 bill, and it doesn't have any name written on it, no sign, you cannot trace it back. So it's yours. So those are the general ways that someone can get stuff that you didn't have before. Another way is obviously inheritance, One of the parents dies, and they give to their children, and that's how they acquire wealth and property. There is one more, and that's spoils of war, okay? And this is seems like an odd one because it's not fair. It seems like it's not fair. And all of the other ones, you worked, you got, your parent worked, you got, it's so. But spoils of war, you use arms to strip someone of their rightfully owned property. What's the story with that? So we're going to start with a little bit of history. I'm just going to move things around here so I can see. Okay, a little bit of history. So the history is that this whole idea of spoils of war existed and was a custom in the world from time immemorial. The very first war that is discussed and described in detail in the Tanakh is in Genesis, in Bereshit, in the very beginning, where you had the war of the 4 kings versus the 5 kings. So the king of Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Tzvoim and Bela, right? So all of those kings fought against another bunch, and they lost, okay? And they lost, and the king of Sodom and Gomorrah had to run away. Actually, they died over there, and those who were left ran away. And here is the key verse why we bring in the story. So the invaders seized all of the wealth of Sodom and Gomorrah and all of their provisions or possessions, and they took it away. Okay, and later on we see that one of the residents of Sodom was a gentleman by the name of Lot. Lot was the nephew of Avraham. And Avraham would not really be happy about the fact that he was taken as a prisoner, and all of his stuff was taken away. So he gave chase, and he caught and he fought against those kings and won, and took all of the spoils back. But Avraham, despite the fact that it was a common law, international law at the time was that if I run a war, if I win the war, I take your stuff. Avraham refused to take the stuff and gave it back to its rightful or previous owners, and he was really praised for it. So we see that spoils happened, and we see, the attitude that Avraham had towards it. So we can see here in verse 21. So Melech Sdom, when the king of Sdom, who greeted Avraham after he came back winning the war, he's offering Avraham a deal. Just give me the people, and you take all of the spoils. Take the stuff. And Avraham is saying, "I swear to the Lord, no, my God, no, I'm not taking it. This is, heaven is my witness. I'm not touching this. This is yours. Take it." So that seems to be, he's not going to take even a thread of a sandal, a shoelace, nothing. That seems to be, above and beyond something that's not expected. So that is a story, and it's the way they were acting before we received the Torah, right? Before Matan Torah, before the Jews were given the written law, the 5 books of Moshe, right? In Har Sinai. Before we got that. So the question is, what is the law? What is our law? I mean, a story that happened before Matan Torah is one thing. What is the law? So the law is, in the Sefer Dvarim, in the Deuteronomy, we see that there is, soon we're going to read, on Shabbos, we're going to read in a few weeks, the parasha of Ki Tetzeh, when you go out to war. That's the whole section in the Torah that gives the rules and the laws and how to conduct a war, against who to conduct a war, the laws that related to the war. And very soon after the beginning of that section, we are being told that if a city is not going to agree to make peace and is going to attack you, so you're going to put them under siege, and God is going to give you the city, and you will kill all of the soldiers, all of the male who were fighting against you. And however, the women and the children and the cattle and everything that's in the city, all of the booty, all of the spoils, the livestock, the whole bit, you can take. And because these are the enemies of your enemies are my enemies, says God, and this is what you have to do, and you're supposed to do it to all of the cities, the far cities, or the close by cities, all of them. So this is the law. The law of the Jewish law is providing for taking the spoils of war. Okay? Now, there were 4 wars that did not happen in. Okay? The first war, which we learned a couple of years ago in the beginning of the book of Joshua, is the war against Jericho. Okay? The war against Jericho. This is the first city that the Jews conquered after they crossed the Jordan River. We wandered in the desert for 40 years, then we arrived at the Promised Land. We crossed the river and we had to conquer the land. And the first candidates were the city of Jericho. The city of Jericho was totally destroyed and burned down, and it was a clear directive from God: don't take a thing from that city. That was the capital city of the time. It was the international city of the time. You had 31 embassies over there. Everything should be burned down. And the rabbis, the commentaries are explaining, because that's the first one, that's the key to all of the land of Israel, to show us that, God is going to provide. Everything is that we took is going to be dedicated, is holy. We're not allowed to use it. So all of that, had to go. Now, that's the first war in the land of Israel. The last war ever, is going to be the war of Gog and Magog. Okay, the war of Gog and Magog. This is the war that is happening in the world right before the coming of Mashiach. All right. Some people are attributing the turmoils that are happening in the world to what happened now. So the Second World War. Somebody said it was the beginning of it, and the consequences are happening still till this very day. In any event, the prophet of Ezekiel, he is describing what will happen after that war. So we're going to conduct the war. God is going to, make us victorious. And what he's telling us to do, that we have to collect everything. We have to collect all of the weapons. We have to collect everything that they fought with us, against us with, and make a big fire and fuel the fire with the bows and the arrows and the spears and all of the weapons. And it's going to be such a big fire that it's going to burn. It can burn for 7 years. It's 7 years worth of fuel, and it says that God is going to be the one to despoil those who despoiled us, or plunder those who plundered us, etc. But the bottom line is that we were told that in the last war we're not going to be touching anything. All right, so that is the story of the wars that we're not not allowed to take spoils. At the end, I will mention another one. There were one more which we're not going to mention, the war of Sancheriv, but there was another one which is we're celebrating every year, very interesting and very common, very known war. We'll mention it at the end. Now, what is the rationale behind allowing people to take someone else's property? Right? That's basically it. So there are those who try to say that, when you fight, someone who's not from your nation, you're allowed to take it. You're allowed to take stuff. But the Jewish law is clearly against that. The Jewish law is that you're not allowed to steal from anyone. Not just from your, neighbor or peer or someone who's like you. You're not allowed to steal from anyone anything. And it's as if, there is no difference. So this is not something that works. If you, gezel, goy is not allowed. It's not allowed to do it. But there is, however, a special provision for war. And let's look at how this provision is playing out. Just as an introduction to this, this is a piece of Gemara, piece of Talmud, right, from the tractate of Chulin. And we mentioned before Lot, right, the nephew of Avraham. The nephew of Avraham had a lot of cattle, a lot of sheep, he needed a place a grazing place. He needed a place to raise them, and he didn't really get along with with Avraham, with the people of Avraham himself, and so they split. And Avraham told him, "Listen, you choose. You want to go to the right? I'll go to the left. You want to go to the left? I'll go to the right." So he chose the best place, the most lush place at the time, which was the Dead Sea. In those days, it was not a Dead Sea. It was a lush place. It has a lot of growth. A lot of the sea was not salty at the time. So he took that area. That's the Sodom and Gomorrah. It's right there. Now, this gentleman Lot, had two daughters. One of the daughters is the nation of Moab, the Moabites came from. They came from Lot. So when God is promising to the Jews, to the Jewish people, what is that we're going to be able to get? Where is our land, and where is God awarding us the land? He said clearly that the land, the country that belongs to the Moabites is off limit. It's so much off limit that we're not allowed to fight. We're not allowed to wage a war against the Moabites. Why not? Because their land was given by Abraham, right? Was given to Lot. And it belongs to them. So Abraham made a deal. We are not, even though it's 3,000 years later, we are not going to break this deal. So therefore, one shall not fight the country of Moab. Okay, very nice. Now, what happened in actuality? So when we came around from the desert, we had to pass through some places, right? So at one point we were trying to pass through a place called Heshbon. It's the city of Heshbon. City of Heshbon is a city right on the other side of the Dead Sea. If you're standing in Israel in the hotels area, you're looking straight. Heshbon is right there, 10 kilometers or so. So that's the city of Sichon. Okay. Now, Sichon was not a Moabite; it was an Amorite. Okay, and there is a story that tells us that Heshbon is the city of Mr. Sichon, who is the king of the Amorites and he won it in a war against the king of Moab. So he is the one that conducted a war against the king of Moab and took that city away. So all of the commentaries are saying, why are we mentioning the history of that city? Who cares? Now Sichon is here. He is preventing us from going through. So, why are we mentioning the annals of that city or the history of that city? So the Gemara, the Talmud is explaining to us that what happened was God told us, don't touch this area. Don't wage a war against the Moabites. Heshbon was one of the main cities of the Moabites. What happened here? Sichon, which is not a Moabite, waged a war against the Moabites and took that city away. So now it's no longer belonging to the Moabites. So now when we pass by and we have trouble with this man who did not let us pass through, we ask him nicely, let us pass through. We're going to stay on the highway. We're not going to stop. We're not going to graze on the way. We're going to, if we need water, we'll pay you for it. Just let us pass through. He didn't want to let us pass through. So, we're not going to be staying surrendered in the, stranded rather, in the desert. So we had to fight him. And because it was the city of, or the land of the Moabites, we had a question. Are we allowed? I mean, we were told not to fight against the Moabite. But because he basically did the dirty job for us, he waged a war against the Moabites and took it. So now it's the Amorites. Now it belongs to the Amorites. And there is absolutely no problem taking it. And that's what it says. Ammon Moav tiaru b'Sichon. There is the country of Ammon and the country of Moab. Those are the two daughters of Lot, right? Both of them were out of limit for us. However, Sichon did conquer those lands. He was not bound by anything that Abraham promised them. He's not related to Abraham. So they made it kosher for us, for the Jews, to take this land. And that is why we're able to do it. So now, what is the halacha? The halacha is very interesting. There is the halacha, and I don't have it on the screen. I'll just read it to you. The Shulchan Aruch is saying that a king, even a Gentile king, a non-Jewish king, who conquered a land in a war, he is buying, he is acquiring, that's his. He acquires this land with all of the rivers, with all of the forests, and now if he sold or gave as a gift one of the forests to one of his subjects or one of his ministers or slaves, he wanted to give one of his people a gift, it's purchased, it's as if they worked for it, it's theirs 100%, even though they don't have a deed, they don't have they can't show a title, not him, not the person who got it, and not the king, because it was won in a war. Because this is the law of the land, this is the law of kingdoms, of kings, the laws of king, that all of the land is becoming part of his possessions. Okay? And it's becoming, it has a seal of approval from Jewish law. So according to Jewish law, if it was just war, we'll see in a second what about war which is not justified and how do we classify that. But a justified war, if somebody won a justified war, that king is legally the new owner of the land. Okay? Now, this is, we mentioned this is the halacha for a Gentile king, right? What about a Jewish king? So a Jewish king is mentioned in the halachot of the Rambam. The Rambam, on the very end of the Rambam, the Rambam is writing the halachot of war, and over there it says, and he's talking about a Jewish king, that all of the land that he takes is his, and he can split it and distribute to the warriors, to the soldiers, or to his servants, according to what he wants. And whatever he decides the law is, that's the law. And the whole idea is, the provision is that this is all true if he means to do it for the sake of just, the L'Shem Shamayim. He wants to do it with the as a fight for God, and to feel the work.
Dor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious. I'm scheduled to be on at 9. But I guess I don't need to stop you. But we should probably plan better next time. I guess.
Yeah. So give 5 minutes.
I've been doing 9.
5 minutes, okay? I'll do it. I'll do it bekitzel. 5 minutes or less.
All right.
I'm sorry. I thought it's 8:30 to 9:15. All right.
I've been doing 9 o'clock for the last few months already.
Yeah. I sent an email. I'm sorry. Okay, 2 minutes. I'll do it bekitzel. Anyway, so the Rambam is saying that this is what you need to do. A Jewish king is allowed to do it. Now, just and probably we'll finish with that, and we can pick it up next time. The last few things is how do we know what war is justified and what war is not justified? Okay, so this is a very interesting Rambam. A war which is not justified is a war of a king that took it by making laws that are discriminatory. If he makes a law and takes someone else's property, as a special case, you're wearing a purple shirt, or I don't like your nose, or some discrimination against this particular person, what happens is that person is no longer, so the laws of that king are no longer justified, and therefore the property that he takes, even in a war, is not justified. Anyway, I don't want to take from the rabbi's class, so we're going to finish the tail end of it, of how to split the spoils of war next time. Apologize for running late. Next time is going to be again at 8:30, and I guess we're going to finish 8:30 to 9. for the next few weeks, and then we'll go back to our normal time, which is 8 o'clock in a few weeks' time. Thank you.
Dror will figure it out later.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shkach.